Let's go to Mr. Michael Seals. He is the president of the Police Social Welfare Association. Sir, I thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You too, like my prior guests, I know you were wrapped in the middle of a conversation, so I'm appreciative more so of the time you took to be with us before. I ask you here this morning because in Kumuto Road, Indian Walk, Princess-Town, dozens of residents allegedly surrounded police officers. They took umbrage to, according to the reports, that the police moved in to check out a person, a suspect as it were. And the report is that they prevented the police officers from carrying out their business. What is your best understanding of what happened at Kumuto Road, Indian Walk, Princess-Town last week, sir?
Well, what happened is that a question of lawlessness. That took place. Part of it is that this is not only isolated to Muruga. What we are seeing is a developing trend that persons in society generally putting up a lot of resistance to police when they are actually conducting the duties. And more importantly, it's not even when they are about to arrest a suspect, and that suspect is resisting arrest or persons around them trying to assist them to escape. It is not even that. It's about police people now generally saying, listen, we are going to let the police know that we are not going to allow them to do their actual duty, what they are sworn to do.
First of all, the residents in that area, it is reported, said that this did not happen, and that's the reason I ask you, to the best of your understanding, did this happen?
Well, the point is this: the videos themselves speak for themselves in terms of what would have surfaced. And more importantly, the investigation also was conclusive that persons who were engaged in activities that would have been constitute the offense of obstruction and assaulting the police officers. That is what resulted in some of the charges against one or two persons who were in fact involved. It's unfortunate because the association is advocating that we take a community type approach to policing most of the communities across the nation. Yes, there are going to be times when you would have what you call hard policing in terms of an aggressive approach, but that should be always limited to persons who have demonstrated to be hardcore criminals or involved in criminal activities that is synonymous with violence. But when you have the ordinary citizens putting up that type of resistance and behaving in that way, it makes things difficult. It also makes things dangerous, both for the policeman and for the civilian who is there. Because if persons would have seen the video, it is determined that each of the policemen were in fact armed, and I applaud them for active restraints, though their lives were. Yes, one officer had to discharge around in the air to dispel the crowd, but we have to be careful because this is going in the wrong direction.
And this is why it bothered me so much, because on the one hand, I understand your disquiet with this. On the one hand, the villagers are saying, no, this did not happen. But the police officer had to fire a round in the air. To me, first of all, that is a very good control, because that could have easily gotten out of hand. And it testifies, it's testament actually to where they felt they were threatened or they had to do something out of the ordinary to bring control.
Yes, and that's more importantly, that's why we have been advocating for quite some time the question of two things, really, the tasers and the pepper spray. And why it's important, you see, when the crowd gets to or swells to that kind of that amount of persons, and then they themselves start to get agitated. Certainly the deployment of the pepper spray, which is C-Spray as we would call it, has the tendency to disperse them, but in a more peaceful manner. Yes, there will be discomfort in them in terms of the proximity and the discharge of it, but it takes away the whole question of the policeman having to, like in this case, resorting to his firearm to discharge around in the air. Because, I mean, even with all the amount of training, we don't know when it will trigger in the policeman's mind that, listen, I feel at this point in time, my life is in danger. I need to lower the weapon and shoot in the direction of the danger that I'm experiencing. This is, for an association, we don't want that. What we want is persons to cooperate with the police.
Michael Seeds, my guest this morning. You know, I'm so happy you took the time to be here, because there are so many aspects of this that's frightening. Police officers work undercover. So you may have one undercover one day who's doing his business, because undercovers by nature would work at times alone, even though backup is in the vicinity. And he sees a situation, moves to correct it. And if you have the citizenry moving to impede that, you are endangering this man, which means that folks will be reluctant to go out and do undercover work, which means more crime will continue to be prevalent in your community.
Again, and you put it quite rightly, that's the challenge, because people are complaining. I mean, if you listen to some of the commentaries, you look at some of the social media that the police are doing nothing, police have a handle on crime has run away, and the detection rate is so low. But here it is, this is an activity where they saw someone with a gun, they were impeded from getting this person with this gun, and then the type of activities that generated after that. I mean, it leaves us to wonder, what as policemen do we do? My approach is to say to policemen, please do not give up. Let us go out and do our job, because there are a lot of citizens in this country who are dependent on us.
That's
and
right.
some of them may be quiet and may silent, but I know inside it's certain them, because at the end of the day, they want more peace and tranquility. And they sometimes in the trying to attain peace and tranquility for them, they are sometimes have to suffer some discomfort because of the mindset of some of the persons in society, and it's unfair to them.
That is quite correct. 99.9% of the population, I hazard to offer, indeed would like the policemen to do their job, because these are our protectors here. Talk to me about the citizens who move in and impede a police officer in executing his duty. How can they be arrested for? Can they be charged?
Well, obviously, because one of the things that has happened is that you have the charge of obstruction, you have the charge of resisting arrest for the person who's actually resisting arrest. Then you have the question of escaping lawful custody. Then you have assault on a police officer. So there's a cadre of charges that can be brought against the persons, even the persons who dare just jeering, or even the person who's filming the activity, can be charged for inciting and aiding and abetting the persons in the escape and all these different things. So it's not a question that they cannot be charged. But the police officers sometimes have to move have to actually weigh their options and their priorities and try to get the persons who mainly responsible, let's charge them, because it's going to be unfortunate to have a person who's just standing by and looking on and things. Though they are standing by, they can be called upon to listen. We want you to assist in us arresting this person. If that person refuses, that person can be arrested also too, just for refusal.
And folks need to understand, what is the penalty for obstructing a police officer in the execution of his duties?
Well, in the principal obstruction, that carries up a term of prison at if I can recall, 6 to 12 months in terms of jail time, and it carries some hefty penalties. Probably we need to visit the way how the U.S. and England do their approach. And that once you exit, we have the offense in terms of when you impede a policeman who is in the actual execution of duty, that the fine and the jail time increases because of that once he's on his lawful duty. And probably this needs to happen. Yes, we have the offense of assaulting a police officer, but we don't have the offense when he's actually carrying out his duty, that it can be doubled. So because someone has to be made an example, because when I even looked at the issue, what happened on the POMB, where the officers were actually they ran the officers and said, go from here, you cannot come to police here. I mean, again, who is the person charged with the responsibility for making things safe? Certainly it's not the resident in the area. It is the policeman who serves the area who has to make things. But it's just strange. Things are changing, but I think we need to have an approach that grapples with this immediately, else we are going to have major problems in the near future.
I don't think we can emphasize enough to communities and everybody listening this morning that if you get in the way of a police officer, you got a problem with a police officer, there's the PB, the Police Professional Bureau, there is the PC, there's whatever. You deal with that totally apart, but getting in the area of interfering with an officer executing his duty is totally wrong from any level, and it endangers endangers the safety of everybody in the community. And I think that's the important thing the communities need to understand. It is not this person being the bad John or being the man in the area. It's about you are endangering any chance you have at protection and justice if you're running the people who are given the charge to do that.
And I must add to that, because with those developments, what happens is this. Then you have a reluctance by the officers to go into the area and to serve the community. So,
yes.
and you would find that it has been an experience, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but in other jurisdictions. For example, I can speak about Jamaica and some of the things that I've learned when I did a course in Jamaica. One of the things that they had a problem is that the persons would have been reluctant to allow the police to service the area. And then when they themselves find that they were outgunned and outmatched, they call for the police, but then the police saying, all right, how do we show up? You don't want us there. How do we show up? Then the police come to investigate after the fact, and sometimes persons are actually seriously wounded or dead. This is not what we want in our country. We don't want that for our communities in Trinidad and Tobago.
Not only that, the perps are gone and the trail could be seriously altered because of the time delay.
Yeah. And it's a perpetual cycle, and you just keep on going on and it doesn't stop.
Supporting the use of body cams would be a good statement here, because body cams, I mean, like I said, if the police officer had to fire a shot in the air, I don't think he's gonna fabricate this whole story. But one of the things that put everything at ease, that assists in doing that, is the whole question of dash cams and body cams. I know they're on trial right now. How long before you think the training and so on is done before we can actually get these things on?
We have entered I think we are entering the second one, because it would have started, had to be postponed. It started on, I think, if my memory serves me correct, on the 6th of August. So we are well into a month of its use. The reports that I'm hearing, it's working pretty well. There's a lot of cooperation by the citizens. And one of the things that we want to make sure, because for us, at the association, is the whole question of police legitimacy. And I think that will go a very long way in restoring legitimacy in an instant, almost like if you put a meal to warm in microwave, it could be instantaneously, because what is captured on camera cannot be disputed. And it's important that we understand that. And I hope that that the authorities really take a serious look at it, because it has the potential to quell even those circumstances where the citizen decides to resist the police in their normal activities. It will lend some support to that.
Do you agree with me and many of the general public who say there should be serious penalties for any officer who turns off his body cam?
Of course. And that's one of the things the association would have said early. The officer must not be allowed to turn off his camera, and if he turns off his camera, we are satisfied by way of analysis that it amounts to perverting the course of justice, because that could be the only reason him turning off the camera to do any type of activity in terms of engaging a member of the public. And we would not tolerate that. We wouldn't stand for that, and we would advocate that he be severely dealt with.
The president of the Police Service Social and Welfare Association, Michael Sees, is my guest in the concluding moments that we have. I do have to take this question into something that came up recently, as this morning, where Ramesh Diosaran chaired a committee, a cabinet-appointed policeman power audit committee, and they are recommending that the PSC be scrapped and find a better way to go about appointing a police commissioner and, of course, his assistant. How do you feel on this? Because I am sure it has been discussed, because one of your members actually sat on that committee, who was a former president of the association and now the secretary, Mr. Ramesar.
Well, yes, I understand, and I can understand what Professor Diosaran would have put out. And we have a real appreciation for what has been said. And I say that because one of the things that I had the opportunity to do together with Mr. Ramesar and other colleagues is that a general research in the area that relates to the whole question of the Police Service Commission and its existence. We had a lot of difficulties with the commission, and there's no two ways about it in terms of some of the time lags in relation to response of appeal matters and some of the issues we sent it. So we understand that. Yes, I have seen in the past that the replacement had been advocated for the Police Management Authority to replace it together with an inspectorate. That has been discussed. I think it's a very important and potent point that Mr. Diosoran has put out there. But we would now look at it by way of careful study, because in the preliminary circumstances, the existence of the PSC troubles us as an association in terms of its effectiveness, in terms of its responsibility for the police service, and it does trouble us. So there's merit in what the son has said, but as regards to what is his recommendation going forward, we have not had sight of that. We will pronounce on that as the time go along, and this is something that we have been actively discussing over a considerable point in time. I know he has married that with the question of to scrap the process of the selection of the Commissioner of Police. There's only one thing for me that troubles me, is that I think there's an anticipation by the entire country as to the selection of a commissioner, a deputy commissioner of police. Whether we do this at this point in time to say let's scrap the process, again, I would not comment on that. I will put that to the public and allow them to comment. But as regards to what he said initially, there is some support and there is some merit in his discourse.
The Police Oversight and Management Board, or POMB, is what is being proposed to step in here. And you think it should go to the public? I think that's a very good idea too. But $3.2 million being used to find a police commissioner is too much money. The process is just too long and it's too expensive.
Well, certainly, I mean, what we had is the rollout of the 2007 legislation, and in that legislative package and its amendments to brought us or culminated into what we are facing today. It is good to say it's 3.2 million, but look at what has happened over. So it's just over 5 or more years we would have had our last commissioner. It doesn't speak well for us, and I know a lot of policemen, they are looking at it, and it does a lot to their morale, because it's easy to say, all right, the commissioner is acting, but then when you look at the commissioner acting, we have a lot of first division officers who are acting, sometimes in some instances two places up, and there has not been an assessment. And then some of them are arguing that probably the commissioner is acting. That might be the real reason he has not had an assessment for their promotion. It's a bitter taste for us, and the association is anticipating that things will change in the near future. But we have to look and see what is happening.
It is not a very good look, because with the amount of acting going on, folks get the feeling sometimes you're looking at the Hill Street Blues or NYPD Blues or something. I mean, there's so much acting here. It sounds as though we're in Hollywood, because it is not only the police commissioner. I mean, all down the line, somebody's acting for somebody. For God's sake, let's get some permanence done in this thing. Michael Seals, I can only thank you for this morning. You sounded as though you wanted to add a final comment. Go ahead, please.
Well, my final comment will be that this association has understood that when the nation put their mind to doing something good, and in terms of us, particularly as we serve law enforcement, and we want law enforcement to be one that is consistent with best world practices, and a law enforcement that prides itself on providing premier service to its clientele, which is the citizenry and the visitors to our shore. We would like that there be some stability going forward. Yes, I understand what Professor Diosoran is saying, but again, I would leave that in the public domain and let the public decide, is this the best way to do things, or should we now look at it for in the future, because at the end of the day, what we want is a better future for Trinidad and Tobago.
I like the sound of what we talked about this morning, and I hope not to sour it with this question, but let me just ask you, the Police Social Welfare Association and the PCA, has there been a better working understanding between both bodies?
I think that we have not crossed that bridge yet in terms of mending fences, and I think that's what has happened in this latest report that has been released. And I want to take the approach that has been adopted by Minister Stuart Young, that the PCA should tread carefully and it should not go outside its remit. What the PCA must do is make recommendations rather than pronouncement. And what we found is that they made a lot of pronouncements, and those pronouncements were in fact innuendos and more speculative than anything.
You were speaking specifically to the final report just handed out from the PCA that deals with the day of policing. Yes, go ahead, please.
That's right. So there were not. So those speculations were not findings, and they are more calculated to be injurious and sensationalize the report itself. So again, those are the things that we would understand, because from an investigative standpoint, an investigator or investigative body is not allowed to speculate. Even if he speculates, he has to investigate that speculation to conclude one way or the other that his speculation is in fact correct. So I think this is one of the situations where the PCA again has gotten it wrong. We have proven that in the past. The matter with Mr. Ian Carty, the magistrate would have made its pronouncement, did not believe the version of events presented by the PCA, and would have gone on to rule that the PCA had ill-advised itself. So it's unfortunate that we are again at this bridge again. So let's watch and see what happens. I mean, at the end of the day, we are saying that you should have a PCA, but we should have a PCA that is unbiased, a PCA that is professional, and that it takes away all its opinion and speculation in terms of the job that they do.
I'm gonna try very hard to get somebody from the PCA with us next week. But in the meantime, I've got my paddle in hand, I've got my life jacket on, I've got a little boat, and I will travel into troubled water and see if I can navigate. Michael Seal, I thank you so very much for taking the time to be with us this morning. You have yourself a wonderful day. Thank you so much, sir.